everyone and welcome to the build video of the Tamiya Tyrrell P34 six-wheeler. Since this build is a little less advanced than some of the other kits we've done, we're going to go all at it all at once. Suggested tools, a quick look at the manual, and all the build steps from the bags to the decals on the body. Let's get started. While it is possible to build this kit with the supplied tools, we always like to have a good set of quality tools on hand to make the job a little bit easier. You can find links to these tools in the description below. It's also a good idea to browse the manual prior to building to get familiar with the assembly steps. Okay, on to the build. Let's start by opening and organizing Parts Bag A. This is where a parts tray comes in handy. For this step, make sure the kingpin is centered before locking it in place with the ball connector. You'll want to build 4 of these steering arms. We always like to measure the links first to get an idea of how far on we need to screw the rod ends. And of course, we use our CompetitionX ball cup building tool to make building links a snap. There's no set way to install these links. We'll get all that sorted out in the next couple of steps. This plate is not directional. You can build it with either side up or down. This assembly step can be a little tricky. We suggest elevating the steering plate. We use the solder spool as weight to help manage the build. Be careful you don't drop the suspension springs while setting the top steering plate in place. After one side is assembled, make sure the steering turns freely and there is no binding in the up and down movement of the suspension. Follow the same steps for the other side of the suspension. Yeah, don't be like us. Make sure you use the small body clips to attach the body mounts. The friction damper pole does not go in easily, on purpose. No need to remount the hole, just screw it in as is. Make sure you line up the holes here prior to tightening down the 3mm nut just below it. Note the orientation of the holes in battery post B. You'll need to match that for a later step. The lower pod plate is directional. Pay attention to its orientation during this assembly step. As a starting point, tighten down the 12mm screw until approximately 1.5mm sticks through the nut. Follow the same tightening procedure when attaching the front battery tray. When assembling the rear pod, tighten down all of these 12mm screws about 95%. There needs to be a little play in them for the moment. Insert these 10mm flathead screws about 95% as well until they are all installed. Then snug them up. Do not over-tighten these. Now that all 4 lower screws are tight, lay the pod on a solid surface and check to make sure it is flat. If it's not flat, you'll feel a wobble in it. Just loosen the 4 lower screws and slowly snug them in a cross pattern until the pod is flat. Once completed, you can slowly snug the 8 side pod screws. These foam strips are used to take up extra space above or below your battery. While we did install these, we ended up removing them to fit our LiPo pack. To make this part of the build easier, we installed the 4 35mm screws, then laid the chassis flat on our table before continuing. Pay close attention to this step. The rear axle has 2 flats on it for the set screws to grab. When tightening up the diff side hub, you'll want to leave a super tiny bit of play between the hub and the bearing. The P34 is a very light car, so we're going to stick with the included Mabuchi motor for now. Leave these 2 screws a little loose for now. We'll tighten them up when we install the pinion gear. For starters, we're going to run the damper disc without any lube. You may want to add some lube if you're going to run the car on a high bite surface. While not stated in the manual, we suggest a very little thread locking compound on the damper nut to help keep it from backing off. Again, not stated in the manual, but we decided to add a little bit of black grease to our center shock. The rear suspension on your P34 is done. As you can see, there's not much to it, but with a little massaging can create a lot of rear grip. little brass 4mm ball connectors are a bit delicate. Slowly screw these in and don't, by any means, over-tighten them. We'll be using an older Savox SB2272 servo for this build, mainly because it's super fast and has had the mounting tabs cut off for another older F1 kit. Pay close attention to how these steering links install. It's easy to mix this up. While the servo may not be, you'll want to make sure that the servo steering horn is centered on the chassis. If the servo wiggles around, you may need to add more tape or a light dab of shoe goo or E6000 to help keep it in place. The P34 does not come with an ESC, but since we're going low budget on the motor, we're also going low budget on the ESC. We're installing the THW 1060, a brushed ESC that comes with most Tamiya kits. Space is quite limited on the chassis, so you might have to be creative with your electronics install. Here's what we found to work best with our setup. Tamiya uses double-sided tape to mount the tires to the wheels. It is a bit tricky, so we suggest watching this part of the video 2 or 3 times to get an idea of how it's done. Just make sure to get the mounting tape as close as possible to the edge of the wheel. This ensures a strong bond between tire and wheel right at the edge. Make sure to also massage the tire to the edge of the wheel before your final mounting press. Follow the same procedure for the rear tires. Since the kit does not come with bearings, we need to add a little bit of lube to the oil eye bushings to help keep them lubricated. Do not over-tighten these nuts. Make sure the wheels spin freely. Here's a pro tip. Line up all of your thrust washer assembly parts on a tool to make them easier to insert. This little plastic insert gave me a few fits during this part of the build. I used a thin driver to key the holes together, making the assembly much easier. Watch 20 different people, you'll see differentials built 20 different ways. Almost all are correct, but we found this to be the easiest way for us. Tighten the nut down, then check the diff setting by holding both rear tires and trying to turn the diff gear with your thumb. It should be very difficult to turn. This is a good starting setting. Because of how big the rear tires are, you will probably need to remove the right rear tire to gain access to the motor mounting screws. You want the pinion as close as possible to the spur with just a touch of wiggle. The rest of the video has us working with the Tyrrell hardbody. You can do like we did and just paint the driver, apply the stickers, and go, or go all in. Repaint the blue and white as well. It's up to you. Oddly enough, the body does not come with the mounting holes pre-drilled. You will need to do that step yourself. We highly suggest enlarging the holes just a little at a time until you attain the size you need. make the larger decals a little easier to deal with, we like to use a warm water soap solution prior to applying them. This allows us to shift the decals around for a perfect application. Attaching this rear radiator caused me to say a few choice words. It's not an easy task. Patience here is key. A keen eye will notice the elf on the wing is incorrect. Yep, that's a big fail on our part. Congratulations everyone on the amazing build of your Tamiya Tyrrell P34 six-wheeler. This car looks stunning both on and off the track. We're not sure if we're going to shelf ours or keep on running it. Let us know in the comments what plans you have for yours. A big thanks goes out to Tamiya, Futaba and Savox for supplying the products used in this build. We appreciate you sticking around for this build. Please subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon to be notified of future videos. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you at the track.